Hello everyone, welcome to HRC Online's dynamic content event, Let's Talk HR. Today we are talking about the labour market, and it's quite exciting. We're covering 3 or 7 continents today. We've got the Asia, we've got North America, and we've got Europe covered in this content today. And with me today, I've got Uma. You published a couple of books, haven't you, on the recruitment process? You in search of job, in search of you, and I think there's another one, isn't there, which is chosen or be chosen, your A to Z of getting your dream job in 60 days. So you're pretty well versed in the labor market.
So yeah, you are right. It's basically the third book that I just published. The recent book is about the recruitment process. This is primarily focusing the candidates and all the career that a candidate has to take forward to. And all the professionals can also have a look at this book and to see as to how the interviews are done, how the resumes are made, and all the process of getting a good job. The earlier one, which you referred, Choose or Be Chosen, that was about 10 years ago. And that was, of course, that was also on a similar subject. But that over the years, over the last decade, there are lots have changed in the job market, lots have changed into the employment industry. And of course, the learnings have changed. In between, I published another book also that was, the title was The Want, and it covered a lot of articles on HR and on journal organizational behavior. So it covers about 50 articles of mine. So that's about it on my published work. So the most recent one is the jobs one.
3 more books than I've published, Uma.
Yeah.
Easily. And David, I mean, you're working in recruitment at the moment, pure accountancy, and I think on the bottom of your email you put the number of jobs that you're recruiting at the moment. I think there was over 60 accountancy jobs, wasn't there? And so things are busy in the world of accountancy, it seems.
Yes, which is quite good for this, I suppose, in the sense that it's a very candidate-led market at the moment. So it wraps it in with it quite nicely as well in that aspect of it. So yeah, very busy, very good.
And Gail, I saw a tweet from you today, which is a new concept to me and something that I've never thought of before, which is getting a coach when you're looking to make a job switch. And it's quite an interesting idea. What can you tell me a little bit more about that? 'Cause that might be something that I've never come across.
Yeah, so a lot of the times, and maybe it's just a Canadian thing, I'm not sure, but a lot of times people will hire a life coach or a career coach to help them figure out what their skills are and what their strengths are, and what they really enjoy doing, so that they can apply that to a new career or look for a job or a position that would use their strengths. So right now I'm getting the training for the UMAP, which incorporates your skills and your strengths and what you enjoy doing into one great package. It's kind of like if you've heard of the 34 Gallup, that identifies your strengths. So it goes along that line of activities. So yeah, in Canada, I think maybe it's just more relevant that people hire these life coaches and career coaches to help them develop and identify those areas of skill and strength.
I think it's a really interesting concept, because one of the things I saw when I worked in recruitment, and David, you'll tell me if you've seen something different. In the UK, you get people that will just apply for a job if they don't have the skills, and then you'll have someone that's missing one particular skill, is perfect for the job, and just won't apply for it. And I think if they had someone like a coach or someone to mentor them, you might actually see more people applying for progression that they're more than eligible to do. Is that something you're seeing as well at the moment?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of that. I think that's where we come in quite helpful in our specific industry that we work in, is we get someone that'll apply for a job with us and we're like, well, yes, we could put you forward for that job, but the reality is you've got X, Y, and Z skills that we've spoke about during the qualification process, and you've actually probably could get a pay rise and move up to the next level already because you're demonstrating those skills already. And it's kind of indirectly coaching them, but there's just some people just take for granted what they do on a day-to-day basis. And when they send their CV in, they don't fully detail stuff because they think, oh, well, it's not in my actual job description versus what I actually do in that role or what I've done as an acting position. So yeah, it happens quite frequently.
And Umar, I'm going to ask you this, the first very big question, which is the Great Resignation, as they're calling it. Is it actually happened, or is it just the biggest threat that candidates have so that they can get hybrid working and flexible benefits, or has it actually happened? How have you found it in sort of the Asia continent, so to speak?
Well, yes, in the pandemic year, in the 2020 and 21, in Asia, of course, in our country, in Pakistan, it hasn't affected much. The organizations have shifted. They're more of how can I say it in terms that HR is perhaps more has worked in more compassionate manner. And if you have seen that in Pakistan, the pandemic was taken well by the efforts by our government were a little better than the other governments around. And we in HR took care of the people in a better manner, and as compared to what has happened into the other parts of the world. So in here, there is not much of the resignation parts that has happened. Yes, there are organizations who had to lay off the staff themselves for the lack of work or projects. But people by themselves, it's a very different environment here in Pakistan. There's different working culture here. People do really like to go to jobs and work, but at the same time, there's another phenomenon that has taken lead in the last couple of years, especially. That is the digital revolution that has taken up in Pakistan. Pakistan is recorded to have is the fourth in line with the biggest freelancers market. So all those freelancers, all those people who have good internet, who have good digital footprint of themselves, they have started doing their own work. And in that sense, the labor market in Pakistan, in the organization setup, yes, there were some laying off by the companies, but that the Great Resignation theme hasn't jumped in a lot in our part of the world.
I think you're touching on something which I've definitely seen here in the UK. Is when you look at employment rates, that's not dropped. It took a dip during the pandemic, but it's at 75.5 sort of percent, which is only around about 5% off what it was pre-pandemic. But actually employed in a company has reduced significantly. And I think we're seeing quite a lot of people setting up their own businesses and being in charge of their own sort of destiny, with websites like Fiverr and things like that, being able to sort of apply your skills across a multitude of projects. Is that something that you're seeing in Canada as well, Gail?
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I have seen a significant increase of people signing up for freelance work and becoming self-employed and getting out of the corporate world. So it's definitely, and it could be in line with the Great Resignation as well, because we've seen that fairly significantly here in Canada. And
David, you know, when people applying for the jobs, if someone's saying, well, it's a 9 to 5, and we expect you to be the accountant and do everything that you need to do, are you getting candidates saying, no, I'm just after contract work? You know, how is the contract and perm market varying now?
It is different. A lot of our clients that we're working with are a bit more, thankfully, intuitive, and they're a bit more flexible with their working ability, and that's, which is good. I did think I saw more of the self-employed kind of people going down that route, and it's worked for someone. It's been absolutely brilliant for them. But we have found that there's a high increase in people that have realized actually there's a lot more to being self-employed than just working your own hours and doing what you want when you want. Everyone sees the sunny side to it, but then when they're like, oh, when I'm sick, I'm not getting paid at all, or if I want a holiday, I don't get a paid holiday leave. So they're a lot more coming back now from having set up themselves and realizing actually it's not as rosy as I thought, and going, just give me the 9 to 5, just allow me to work from home 3 days a week and I'll take it. So we are kind of seeing a bit more of a turn now, I feel, especially with the candidates I'm speaking with that are moving from self-employed back to corporate, where they don't have the headache of running their own business and they can just finish at 5 and that's it, done and dusted.
Yeah, I think Gail touched on it last week, and I don't know, and I'll come to you, Mark, to answer it. Gail was mentioning how people, when you've been furloughed or when you're working from home, feel a little less in touch with their employer. They don't feel like they're part of the culture anymore because they're stuck at home all the time. And based on that conversation, I did a bit of a survey. I was like, do you feel under pressure to respond immediately, to an email when you're working from home, to sort of demonstrate, look, I'm in the office, look, I'm working, see if people still feel that pressure? And 63% of people still feel under more pressure that they've got to demonstrate they're working when they're at home. I guess my question to you, Umar, is how are people finding the working from home and working in the office? Because as you mentioned, a lot of people want to work in the office and be seen sort of and have that social interaction. Do you think this flexible working that we're seeing probably in Europe and North America is going to be sort of a part-time thing where people are going to want to come together socially?
Yeah, in Pakistan, the flexible working hours is a new thing for us to begin with. Here there is this phenomena has just jumped in after pandemic. People realize that there is an option of working from home also. Earlier there wasn't any such option, and even then, to understand this, we have to study some statistics in Pakistan. I have that in front of me. In Pakistan, we are mostly a service-oriented industry economy, which is basically covering about 38% of the whole economy in Pakistan. So, and then there is an agriculture economy, which is 37%, and the industry is 25%. So now, having those statistics in front of us, we can see that all the service and agriculture, which is taking care of about 75% of the economy, it is very difficult for them to work from home, and for the employers, and at the same time for the workers also to work from home. Industry, yes, there's 25%. They are also into production, especially the textile industry. They had lots of orders during the pandemic time, and people and we are not aligned to that technology kind of a thing also. Our people are more tuned towards waking up in the morning, dropping kids to school, and then going to the office. I mean that's the tuning that everyone has here in Pakistan. Yes, the last couple of years have little changed that. And then there is another phenomena in our part of the world where there are lots of multinationals operating here, and all the multinationals who are operating here, especially multinational like Levi's and Coke and Nestle and all those multinationals, they strictly observe that working from home phenomena. But on the other hand, the local groups, the local business owners, they basically found out another ways of managing their HR. I mean, they were opening the offices, they were giving some flexibility, but at the same time, they were concerned about their service levels, their production, and the mental health of the employees. I mean, that's another very important phenomenon that has come up in the last couple of years, that those who are working from home, and mind you, in our part of the world, it is not easy for people to work from home, because the social setup that we have, the kind of home environments that we have, we all are tuned to go to the offices, and it really was very, very troubling for people to work from home. And they took a sigh of relief when the offices opened up again and lockdowns ended, and they started going to the offices again. So yes, there is, but we have to. Yeah, we have to look at from this perspective that if there is a service industry, your economy is service industry, yes, then working from home will not be very easy.
Yeah, and a couple of the industries we've seen job openings and quit levels at records high in the UK is healthcare, retail, and leisure and hospitality. Gail, I guess what areas are struggling in Canada at the moment, or is it just everything is slowly recovering? Or
That's a good question. I think that it really depends on the region and the province, because the job market is so different from one area to the next that it's really hard to say that which sector is recovering and which one is not. It's more dependent on the region. Because here in my province is a completely different job market than in Ontario job market. So it's I find that the farther east that you go in the country, the tighter the job market is, and I find that a lot of recruiters that I talk to are having a hard time filling positions, just because there are so many jobs out there, and people are being even headhunted from their current position to start new positions because the job market is so tight.
I think that's I see David nodding. I look at the Office of National Statistics, which is the UK Office of National Statistics, obviously by the name, but they've said that currently there's 1,288,000 jobs. I think it's 128,000 jobs being advertised in the UK at the moment, which is the highest it's been ever, by nearly double in some instances, some years going back to sort of 2006. David, what are employers having to do to get that good candidate?
I think nowadays, rather what I'm finding works well with the industry we're working with is I work very close with the companies that I recruit for. So it's more of a consultative approach rather than just give me your job advert, because the job adverts nowadays are completely redundant, because while it might appeal to one person, is it really as strict as it used to be, and can it be adaptable? And I know a lot of people on LinkedIn, you'll see don't put, if you haven't got a salary banding on the advert, it's ridiculous. And I completely agree. The problem we're getting though is the salary bandings are getting so big to warrant the market of candidates. So you might be a candidate at the junior level coming in, but then you've worked for a different company and your experience is different. So what I'm finding with the clients that I'm working with is it's about tailoring the role to the candidate based on their skill set, rather than just trying to shoehorn them into a generic vacancy. And we find that by speaking with the clients, we're like, well, what's your non-negotiables? What's the things that you need this candidate to do? And what are the things that you would like them to do? And it's differentiating between that. And then being able to say, right, well, we've got X amount of candidates. Here you go, have a look at them. And then when they're in the interview process, they nearly start creating the role then throughout the interview process based on the candidates they've got, which means that they can tailor the salary a bit better, but also they're able to tailor the benefits to suit them as well. Because like we mentioned before, some people want to be in the office. I know myself, I hate working from home. It's just not for me. I love the social aspect of being in the office. Some people don't. Some people like to work from home and they do it well and they're productive. So it's about, rather than saying you have to be in X days, you have to do this, it's about tailoring it to suit each candidate and kind of creating that focus and that process throughout, but also making sure that you're getting someone that can do the job at the level you need.
Anuma, how do you go about attracting a Gen Z person? Because recently in the UK, it said 1 in 2 of the newer generation found their jobs through social media, as opposed to, a job advert in the paper when I was a kid, or Monster or LinkedIn or something like that. People are trying to find it on Twitter and on Instagram. How is that the same for that generation in Pakistan, or are people still following more traditional approaches?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, we are way ahead. We are quite in line with whatever happening in the other part of the world. Yes, there is. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool for people here. Then there is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. These are all there. But mind you, the other part that we need to take care of while deciding about this, that there are levels also. I mean, there is a huge labor market. The labor market, by labor market, I mean that people who are low-level workers into the industry, they usually don't have much access to all the LinkedIns and Instagram and all those stuff. All those people who are having access to these social media platforms, yes, they are concentrated into the bigger areas, bigger markets, and they are more like graduates who are fresh from the university, and then they are vying for a job. And all those are, of course, none of them is looking at the newspaper ads now. Yes, but there are a lot of newspaper ads in our local newspapers, in our local language, and they are targeting the market, which are the blue collar workers who are working in an industry or any worker level position. So that they are still going through the same newspaper advertisement. But yes, there is a huge market, huge candidate portfolios that are on LinkedIn, and all our recruitment agencies, they are looking at all the LinkedIn profiles and then offering them positions.
Now, Gail, CIPD did a survey, a resourcing and planning survey when it comes to recruitment. And I could ask you this as a question, but I'm not going to, which is how many companies do you think identify skills gaps before they do the recruitment process? And it was shocking. Only 46% of businesses identify skills gaps before they go a recruitment process. A lot of people just job in, job out, job in, job out. We've got it in the budget. I mean, how valuable is it to do that sort of identifying single points of failure, skills mapping, identifying talent progressions?
That is actually a really surprising statistic. That would probably account for the high turnover those organizations are having. It's absolutely critical to do a skills assessment and job analysis prior to even creating that job posting, because from one year to the next or one position to the next, that job description might change quite significantly. So having that job analysis is absolutely critical before even thinking of hiring for that position.
Yeah, I mean, I'll read you out the list of statistics we've got from this resourcing and planning survey. 43% have an ad hoc approach to recruitment. 40% undertake retention activities, so 60% don't. 46% have a workforce planning strategy. 31% identify future skill requirements. 20% the cost of labor turnover, so looking at sort of David's costs and planning for that in for the year and stuff like that, so you know how that can hit a company. 13 measure the return on investment of a recruitment process and a resource planning, and only 13% assess the supply of talent in the field. I mean, Uma, these are some bad statistics if organizations want to attract the best talent, aren't they?
Yeah, you are asking me? Yeah, these are. I mean, yes, these statistics are basically what we need to see in a global environment also, that when there is a job advertised, and how the people are looking for the position. I mean, there is a huge. I mean, earlier someone was saying that this is a skill gap that has to be that is into the organizations, and to cover that skill gap, it is basically a lot of thirst has to go into our making of the job descriptions and doing the job analysis, and our HR in Pakistan specifically. It's a thriving HR community here in Pakistan. I must say, I mean, people are there are lots of forums and there are lots of discussions going on. on in Pakistan as to how the HR people need to revisit their job description, revisit their metrics in HR as to how they can quantify the cost of turnover and how they can find out the new people who are qualified to take up the job. There is a lot of debate going on between academia and industry also in Pakistan as to how they can prepare the people who are, or the students who could be suitable for any organization into the in technical jobs also. I could just relate this with one example that just during the pandemic years, we were hiring for doing a huge recruitment for a train project in our city in Lahore. And for that, we could not have anyone because that was a new project in Pakistan. That was first time happening here. So we looked for people in Saudi Arabia, in Australia, in Qatar, in Oman, and there people who were from Pakistan and working there in the metro rail projects. And they were willing to come back to Pakistan, and we had to source them from those countries to come back to Pakistan. So that was a huge gap in our technical field here in Pakistan. And we are there are lots of organizations in Pakistan who are trying to bridge that gap, and that's what exactly HR is doing, should be doing with the academia or with the technical institutions to fill up those positions by filling up those technical skill gaps appearing into the organizations.
And I think one of the things that always worries me in these types of situations where you've got to go externally, you've got to bring in a lot of external knowledge, is that they don't invest in the local people in training and building them up so that they can take it on the next project and the next project. Is that part of the planning strategy as well, I assume? Sorry, Uma.
Sorry?
Is that part of the, you've got to develop the people whilst you bring in the external resource? It's all about developing the internal resource as well.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. That is a part of the strategy. That's what I said, that HR community here is very thriving community, and they are trying to build up that bridge that gap between the skills and trying to make those people who are not tuned up to those skills jobs. They are trying to bring up lots of technical institutes here in Pakistan. And yes, the new project that I was referring to, that was not done before. That's why we had to go outside the country, in fact, to find resources for that. But yes, there is there is an understanding and identification that there are skill gaps, and those skill gaps are to be filled by training them and by opening up new technical training institutes, especially for those people who have just gone to schools and haven't gone to any university or higher degrees.
And David, Uma talks about bringing in external resource to solve projects. I mean, the industry you work in, if they lose, I'm assuming a lot of times single points of failure, they lose their accountant, year end's coming up. Suddenly they're going to have to bring in a whole raft of support and infrastructure to do that. How much planning do you see organizations put into single points of failure and ensuring that they're mitigated? Because that needs to be a critical part of the HR process and the recruitment process.
I think that's something that we work really closely with our HR teams. Like, a lot of people see recruitment agencies as the big bad or the external point of contact, but it depends on the level of support you're getting. We kind of pitch ourselves as a bit of a partner or an arm for that business, and our goal at the end of the day is to fill the vacancies they've got, but help them to maybe tweak or amend or look at what they're doing internally to kind of fix it going forward. So essentially they don't need us at the end of the day, because there is plenty of businesses that do need us. So it's not like there's a shortage of companies that will never need accountants. So yeah, we look at kind of that strategy going forward, and like, I'm working with some of my clients now on positions they're looking at for next year. Like, what are they looking at, what kind of plans are there gone, what is their retention of staff like, and kind of discuss them with them. Like, the candidates in the market are looking for this now, what's it going to be like in 6 months' time, and keeping them, rather than keeping it as this close-knit secret that I should only have, it's spreading that information and knowledge to the clients that I work with, so that they're getting their value for their money at the end of the day, and being able to help them with maybe amending their benefits package to appeal to the right candidates, or help whatever will help me as well secure them that candidate and make sure that the offer they're putting forward is what the candidate's going to look for at the end of the day. But yeah, there is it's about working on that long-term plan. But I find that a lot of businesses, because it's a candidate-driven market and they're short of candidates, they kind of sometimes can get tunnel visioned into, let's just fix the current problem and stick it, kind of patch it over with a plaster, rather than looking at, right, how do I stop this from continuing again in a month's time, 2 months' time? So yeah, I think it's working with people externally to fix the long-term goals is really, really important, and something that kind of thankfully we're working with at the moment.
Yeah, and Gail, we talked about this a little last week in terms of, the well-being of staff, and especially now more luxury of choice of opportunity. I think what we've agreed so far is people can make a range of decisions, and it's great that you're offering services to sort of coach people into understanding the ramifications of those decisions. But if you were looking for a job yourself now, what would be the main factors that you'd be looking into? What would you want to see from what would you want to see organizations offering before you'd even consider submitting a CV?
Oh, definitely. I think that for me, I would be looking at the strategic plan of the organization and ensuring that my personal values align with that of the organization's, so that there's a good match there. I think that without that, you're not going to be happy making a move to a new organization if you don't believe in their mission and their vision and align with their corporate goals.
And David, I'm going to come back to you on this. I'm assuming, during the Great Resignation or redundancies and things that happened in the pandemic, I'm assuming you get quite a lot of applications for a particular role, and people and candidates panicking just because they need a job and they need to pay bills, so they'll apply for anything that's offered. How do you coach a candidate into understanding you've got skills, you've got value, and you need to match your value to that? How do you bridge that gap, really?
I think the good thing that I'm able to offer is multiple options for them. They're not looking at just one application. They're going to have, say, for example, 5 or 6, especially if it's a candidate-driven market. If you've got multiple offers on the table, you're able to kind of get to know the culture of the organizations a bit better. You don't feel as pressured if you got more than one option available to you to feel like, right, I need to take this. Also, a lot of the time as well, because the reality is I don't want them to start a job, not like it, and then drop out because it's useless to me. It's useless to the organization. It makes me look bad as a recruiter from all angles. So for me, I really do drill home from the first point of contact. What is it you don't like? Why are you looking to move? Or what's the kind of push and pull factors? And I even encourage candidates to speak with their current employer if I feel like it's something that an employer could amend or fix, because they're going to have that conversation at the resignation stage. I might as well get them to have it now. So I find that is that's something that's useful from my point, is that yes, I have that conversation with them. They do that, but at the end of the day, they're not going to feel pressured into taking the wrong job. It's going to be better cultural fit. But trying to get people to kind of take a breath back and realize that they don't need to make an immediate decision and not to necessarily panic is really key. But it's, again, like we've said earlier, it's about coaching them and kind of getting to understand their motivation and their reason for wanting something different. And that kind of helps with that process, I feel.
Anuma, I'm not going to ask you to quote your book per se, but if you were giving advice to someone that's about to start the job search for themselves, and you say, right, this is the first thing that you should do, what would you say to candidates? Where should they start when they want to look for something different?
I can't stop myself quoting my book, but yes, I have to. And the first thing is that I always tell them that you need to see your career first, and what do you really like doing. That's the key basically. And over the years, in a part of the world, perhaps globally, this phenomena has taken good roots. As to coaching people as to what you really like to do, and you should be pursuing. If you like to, if you are a good accountant, if you are good with mathematics, if you are good with speaking, if you are whatever you do good, just try to do that. And that's what I coach my kids also, and I put things open in front of them as well. That whatever you like to do, you should be doing that. And once you start doing that, you actually end up not only finding jobs, but if you do not find any job for that matter, you can start your own work, and you can start a startup company for your own self, and you can become an entrepreneur also. Perhaps that is perhaps a title of my next book, in fact, which is you can, if you can't find a job, you can become a good entrepreneur if you are skillful in that particular thing that you are doing. So the first advice is that yes, you need to have a good skill set for yourself. You need to understand your competencies, where you are good at. And then the other good thing that I think it is a very good thing that I coach to young students especially, and to the career-oriented people also, that giving an analogy with the cricket matches, that it's your career is not a T20 match. It is not a 3-hour thing. Your career is a test match where you have to really, it is really a test of your endurance and test of your skills, and that's how your career progresses. If you consider it just a T20 match, it will be finishing in 3 hours, or perhaps for that matter in 3 years. And that's what most of the young generation is doing right now, that they think that if they have graduated and they have good skills, they should be director or owner of a company, and regardless if they have gone through the drill of their career or not. So that's basically two basic advices: that love what you are doing, and start finding job in that, and don't take your career as a T20 match.
Okay, well, I'm going to finish just with a basic question for each of you, which is, what is the maximum amount of interviews someone should have for a particular job? I think the record I've seen on Twitter is someone's gone to 8 interviews and then they offered it to the other candidate. So, Gail, what is the maximum amount of interviews an organisation should have with a candidate before offering a job?
I would like
1.
to meet that person who has taken
1.
8 interviews and was not offered.
Right.
Well, I have
That's
a
crazy.
horrible one myself. So 1 interview, they should know I'm that first one. David?
Absolutely.
I think 1, 2 at a push if it was directorship level, maybe, but that'd be it.
And Uma, how many interviews before that someone should be offered a job as a maximum?
Yes. Yeah, I think maximum is 3 is a good number. I mean, usually what happens is, one is the screening interview, and the next is a little technical one. And if they have to make a decision between 2 or 3 people, then the third one. But more than 3, it is taxing on people, and really humiliating also sometimes. But yes, 3 is the maximum. 2 is good, and 3 is maximum.
My next little question is salary range on job adverts, yes or no? And again, I'll start with you, Gail.
Yes.
100% yes.
Uma, salary range on job adverts, yes or no?
That's a pretty. I think that's a good criteria to shortlist candidates.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of. I remember going through one process myself before I set up this organization, where they didn't want to tell me the salary range because they wanted to meet with me and a few other people to find out what we wanted, so that they could create a bracket that was acceptable. To which I then declined the interview, because I'm not going to go just to be priced up for everybody else.
Yeah.
The point is, if you allow me.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, it's the salary range is basically, it's good for the recruiters to know that what the salary range they would be looking for in terms of looking at the candidates. But sometimes the organizations hide that salary ranges for the reason that for some particular positions for which they usually say that it depends on the skills or the experience of the person, and they keep it open, in fact. a good idea to keep it open, that so that people who are applying for that, they could find a good match for that. But yes, there are further implications of that salary ranges also. Within the organizations, there could be some people who would not be very happy to know basically that what are the ranges in our organization, which being advertised into the advertisement. So they could also know that, okay, the new people are coming at this range and we are offered at pretty low level.
I think that's a lot of the times people don't advertise, in my opinion, is because they don't want to show to the business what they're prepared to pay for somebody else. And
that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Which again, 40% undertake retention initiatives. And it shows that a lot of people don't value the talent that they've got in the organization, or take it for granted, hoping to keep it at a lower rate for longer because they may feel like they've invested in it or something like that. So that probably demonstrates that. In terms of the labour market at this moment in time, what should, and this is more a general question, what should organisations be doing to retain their talent? Because there are going to be vacancies out there that anyone can apply for. There's job adverts everywhere at the moment. Gail, what should an organisation be doing in Canada to make sure that they retain their top developing talent?
Well, it really depends on the organization, I think. And it's not always, yes, you should work on retaining the talent that you have, but there's also an aspect of getting new talent in to have new ideas and refresh and restart. Because if you have the same employees every year for years and continuing, there's never really any fresh ideas and just new. And I think if you're working with the employees and training and developing, there is going to be a point where they've outgrown the role that they're in, and the next step is to find a new job or transfer out of their certain department, which allows for that growth. So I think losing your talent should be part of your talent management strategy, and you're growing and developing your staff so that they will eventually leave the organization and grow in another position or be prepared for another position. And then new employees come in and they go through that same process. So really that the turnover in the talent management perspective is a good thing rather than a bad thing. If you're losing people because you're not developing them, then that would be the bad thing.
I think that's a really valid point. I think I remember, in organisations I worked with, we couldn't offer promotions because we had people in positions and they needed the next step. And sometimes it is about, well, it's time to do something different. It's time to move on to a new opportunity because we can't offer you something else. But people get comfortable, don't they, David? And they're scared of the new opportunity. But sometimes people need it really to move forward.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that comment.
Sorry?
I think what we just touched on there is really, really important, and it's about the future proofing that I mentioned earlier. Like, right, you're going to need this position in 12 months because the candidate you're taking on is X far through their experience. It's that future proofing that I mentioned earlier about kind of having a plan in place for them to move on up within the business or move on out of the business, depending on their kind of long-term goals as well. And it ties in with what I was saying about during the interview process, kind of ironing down, well, at the moment in your life and your career, where do you see yourself in 3 years' time? Because we want to see what you're ambitious like or whether you want to be this, that, or the next thing. We want to know how we can get you there. And it's knowing that from the interview process means that you're showing that right culture for the candidate to retain and kind of acquire them in the recruitment process.
Yeah, and I think, with 87% of businesses on this CIPD survey not assessing the supply of talent, measuring return on investment, and only 80%, looking at the cost of labour turnover, I think it's showing that there's definitely an area people need to start looking at if they want to sort of improve the talent pools and know that they can sort of move people on and progress through. Because it's like you said, Gail, it's not a bad thing if people come through your organization and leave better. Umar, in terms of retention, you know, is there things going on at the moment to sort of retain talent? Because obviously people need to get businesses back on an even footing. There's still a bit of recovery going on at the moment. Or is it, you know, as Gail mentioned, it's just that comfortable progression of people through the organizations, you know, where to attract new talent and develop them through, and all those processes are pretty strong and intact?
Yeah, we need to see it from another perspective also, as we are discussing in terms of retention and development of the staff of our people. Is a huge bulk of millennials in our organizations. I mean, these are the people who are who really don't care about loyalty within the organization. I mean, loyalty, quote unquote, is a different world. Has different meanings for different people, but those who are millennials, they don't care about lots of what is happening into the organization or what are the long-term plans of the organization. They want a contribution going on of themselves into the organization, and if the organizations can show them that they are contributing heavily into the organization or productively into the organizations, there is a good chance that those people could be retained. So we need to take this aspect into our discussion, that the turnover currently is directly proportional with the age of the people that we are hiring. I mean, the millennials, they are really people who believe in doing and growing and just going away. They don't like to work in the organization whole of their life. So that's pretty a good challenge for HR people, the HR community also, that how to put them, how to train them in a way that they, or to show them every year that there is a new position for them or there is a new project for them. So that is a big challenge for our organizations. I think globally that's true for all the millennials.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was discussing that with their directors this week, like the difference in every market, I think, that I can see. And I've got like friends myself that have themselves done it, where they may have had 20 grand, 30 grand pay rises over the space of 2.5 years because they've moved from new positions. And yeah, they've grown, they've got better, they've obviously outgrown their roles in most cases. But it's what do companies do nowadays to reward loyalty? And that's the thing, like what do you get if you're being offered 10 grand more to move elsewhere? Why would they stay? Because the reality is we go to work at the end of the day to make money. And I find that that's a big linked in with the millennial side of it. Of course, that's what businesses are struggling to do nowadays, is kind of look at ways to reward loyalty versus getting new people in.
So a great thing from Nando's, if someone's been there 5 years, they give them a month off, which I quite liked. Yeah. Just like an extra month off, just have a month, well done, come back in a month, we'll see you then. But most companies can't afford to just throw someone out for an extra month and then bring them back. But I quite like that because there's little cards and everything like that. I saw it on social media.
Yeah, Nando's are really good for their employee engagement.
You never know that they come back after 1 month or not. They would find another job during that 1 month.
You're going to come back if they're giving you a month off, aren't you? Right. Well, as we're coming up to 50 minutes, I'm going to start wrapping things up. I think I'm going to try and summarize some of the things that we've talked about, which is, yes, there has been a great resignation, and part of it's down to redundancy. Part of it's down to people identifying new opportunities and new ways in which to progress their own careers, whether it's self-employed, whether it's, you know, extra money in elsewhere. And whilst there's a flood of jobs, it is a candidate-led market because people are able to make the decision that best fits their lifestyle and their expectations and what they're trying to do. So there are some things we need to do as HR professionals when we look at the CIPD survey in terms of assessing the future of talent. But really, it's a good time to change and get yourself a coach and someone that can really value your skills and tell you what you could do with it. Don't be scared to have a conversation with a HR professional not in your organization to go, where could I go, or a recruitment consultant to go, where would I be valued? What would my value be in this market? Because you might be surprised. Getting nods, pretty much summarized it.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. And only one job interview.
Yeah. If they make you come to a third or fourth, leave.
I haven't got time for that.
And if they don't tell you the salary, don't apply.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean, all of this connects to the CIPD Level 5 qualification, which is the Talent Management and Workforce Planning Unit, which has got a lovely code of 5HR02. And it's a specific assessment, which is explain the impact of the changing labour market conditions on resourcing decisions, which, let's face it, is really hard thing to answer in 500 words, which is all you've got to answer that, because there are so many different factors going on at the moment. But think about things like career coaching, think about things like recruitment consultants, think about Uma's book as ways to sort of give you those 10 points to go through it, and hopefully you can understand the labour market a little bit better. This has been Let's Talk HR with HRC Online, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you. Take care.